Today, I'll be showing you what retirement actually looks like when you have a $3.5 million portfolio and whether that number really means you're ready. Over my years working with high net worth retirees, I've seen how a $3.5 million retirement actually plays out, from daily spending decisions to long term wealth preservation. If you're new to the channel, hi, I'm Julia, certified financial planner and managing director at URS Advisory. And that's exactly why I'm making this video today, to show you what life with a $3.5 million portfolio really looks like and help you determine if you're truly ready. I encourage you to stay through to the end because I'm going to be running through almost all of the software we use to analyze our clients' financial plans and how seemingly small decisions can really impact the quality of a person's retirement. So let's get into it. Meet Paul and Lynn Price from Florida. They are both 66 and retired. Before we can assess their possible lifestyle, we need to establish a baseline or a foundation of information on them so that we can test it against different scenarios: a bear market upon retirement, a long lifespan, and long-term care costs. So let's start with the basic overview of their investable assets. This does not include their home or other tangible assets, just their liquid investable assets. And that's because in retirement, your liquid assets are what actually drives your cash flow. They have a high yield savings account worth $100,000, a trust worth just over $700,000, a stock option plan worth about $550,000. Paul also has an inherited IRA worth $285,000 and a traditional IRA worth $1.2 million. Lynn has a $640,000 traditional IRA. Now, you'll notice that they have primarily pre-tax accounts, but do have a decent amount in taxable accounts to allow for some flexibility in their tax planning, which we'll dive into soon. Now we're going to move to our flagship software to show you how we would start to analyze their situation. So here's their baseline. Paul and Lynn are 66, right? And they're both retired. And we're going to use a life expectancy of 95 years old. They have two kids, Michael and Stacy. They want to spend $10,000 a month or $120,000 per year in retirement. And instead of leaving a legacy to their children, when they pass, they want to gift each of their children roughly $250,000 over their life. And that's because their kids are just starting to build their own financial foundation, and they'd rather be able to see their kids use that money to good use while they're still here. They know their kids need the money more now than they will when they're, say, 55 or 60. So instead of, gifting them up front, I did suggest that we spread those gifts out over a number of years. Probably 7 years would be ideal. And we'll use the joint annual exemption amount, which in 2025 is $38,000 for each spouse. So we'll see if this is feasible and the best place to pull these gifts from. So to be clear, for the first 7 years of retirement, their total ideal spend, including these gifts, would be $220,000 per year. Under net worth, we can see their investable assets we reviewed earlier, as well as their primary residence, which is paid off and worth $850,000. Their only guaranteed income source is their Social Security, and we determined that the optimal time for Paul to file is age 70, and he'll receive $55,272 a year. And Lynn actually filed last year at 65 for $33,000 per year. Again, they want to spend $10,000 per month or $120,000 per year. And we're going to index that at 3% inflation. And once they reach advanced age, and just a reminder, advanced age is kind of where you go from that go-go years, and then you slow down to, slow go and then no-go. But just as a reminder, they do want to add an additional $76,000 in gifts over the first 7 years. And that amount we are not going to index for inflation. All right, back to advanced age. Recognizing an advanced age reduced spend is important, because there comes a point where you just can't spend what you did when you first retired. And this is typically around age 80 to 85 years old. And this is where expenses decrease by typically about 30% of that, first retirement spend. And for them, this is age 80 at $90,000 per year in today's dollars. The software will inflate these expenses at 3% per year. And the software will also account for federal and state tax. But since they live in Florida, it's only going to calculate federal tax. They don't have any life or long-term care insurance. We're going to run several Monte Carlo analyses to determine if they can safely spend these amounts every month and year, and if not, what adjustments they need to make to get there. A Monte Carlo analysis is the best way to test the success of a financial plan. Simply put, the computer takes 1,000 different stock market scenarios between now and Paul and Lynn's life expectancies. A third of the scenarios use above average stock market performance, a third use average, and the final third uses below average market performance. The computer then takes your baseline of information, so, everything we just went over, and runs it against all 1,000 of these stock market outcomes, giving us a percentage of likelihood that you will make it to your life expectancy without running out of money. We're looking for a score of 80% or higher, but before we do this, we need to run an analysis on their current investments to see what they stand to lose in a major bear market, because I'm going to use that scenario as a stress test to run in the Monte Carlo analysis. Okay, so here we are in Riskalyze, and this is software that can quantify how much risk a client is taking so that we can see how vulnerable they are to the sequence of returns risk. Essentially, we want to make sure that they can withstand a major bear market at the beginning of their retirement so that they don't run out of money in their 80s. Riskalyze scores portfolios from 1 to 100, 1 being cash, CDs, fixed annuities, basically investments that can't lose value. The S&P 500 scores a 73, and Bitcoin, or a very volatile individual stock, would score 100. So we've already bucketed their money, and I want to show you briefly how we do this. As a refresher, we always bucket or segment our clients' portfolios upon retirement. We make sure that they have anywhere from 3 to 5 years of expenses in fixed investments. So think high-yield money markets, fixed annuities, CDs, individual treasuries or individual bonds, and cash. So this is the green bucket. This ensures that they won't be forced to sell in a down market to pay for their lifestyle. You then invest 3 to 10 years in a balanced manner, the yellow bucket. So think about 50% stock, 50% income, or 50% stock, 50% fixed. And the remainder, or the red bucket, can be invested exclusively in all stock, because this is money that you won't need for at least 10 years. Now, there are some advisors who believe you should replenish the green and yellow buckets every few years. And while I'm not super opposed to this, I'm also not convinced that it's necessary. A market crash, meaning a lasting downturn, only occurs every 10 or so years. And the damage done from a market crash 10 years into retirement isn't nearly as bad as one that happens immediately upon retirement. So our vulnerability to these events gradually decreases over time, which is why if you are an aggressive investor, you don't need to fully replenish your green and yellow buckets after your first 5 to 7 years of retirement. Okay, so back to Paul and Lynn. Here in the cash flow report, we can see that they'll need about $600,000 from their portfolio for the first 5 years, and roughly $120,000 for the following 2 years. And then once R&Ds and Paul's Social Security kicks in, they'll actually have a surplus of income. You may notice that this doesn't include the $76,000 in gifts to the kids for the first 7 years, and that's on purpose. I'm going to show you my idea for this in just a minute. So we bucket their money like this, and we can see that the high-yield money market fund, for a total of $600,000 strewn across the accounts, basically is the green bucket and some of the yellow bucket. And the remainder of the portfolio is invested in stock index funds and high-yield income funds for both growth and income. You'll see here that I included everything except for the high-yield savings account, as that was for emergencies and not technically part of his investments. You can also see that each separate account has its own risk score, and I order them from the least to the most aggressive. This brings their total portfolio risk number to 46, with 63% in stock, 19% in money market funds or cash, and 18% in income funds. Their average return over a 10-year time frame is 9.1%, and their annual dividend is 4.01% per year. Now, this is all important information, but the real question is, with this specific investment allocation, what do they stand to lose if we go into recession next year or their second full year of retirement? So under stress tests, we can see several scenarios and their outcomes, but I want to focus on the third scenario, the if a financial crisis were to happen again. And this models would occur between October 15th of 2007 and March 2nd of 2009, where the S&P 500 lost 53.1% of its value. If that occurred again, they would lose 31.8%, or roughly $1 million of their $3.5 million portfolio, but really only 3.4 invested. Now, this information is crucial because we need to ensure that they can succeed even in the worst case scenario. So now let's move on to the gifting strategy. We can see here that Paul has a stock option plan from his previous employer. He wants to divest of these positions so that he doesn't have such a concentrated position in one stock. And as soon as I heard that, I got the idea to gift his employer stock to his children as opposed to just giving them cash. And he loved the idea for two reasons. First, he could pass on the capital gains tax to his kids, so he'd save tax, and more importantly, he can teach his kids about the power of investing and kind of force them to consider the pros and cons of selling the stock because, again, Paul would be passing off the capital gains to them. So whenever they sell the stock, they will be the ones to owe that capital gains tax depending on their situation. Gifting stock can be a very inspiring way to encourage children to save and to pay more attention to their finances. We can't see these gifts in the cash flow report that I showed you earlier, but we can see it here in the ledger report. And as an aside, working with successful retirees over the years has taught me something important. And that's that most people don't actually struggle with saving for retirement. They've done that part really well. And what they really struggle with is knowing where to start with retirement planning. There are so many moving parts: tax strategy, withdrawal distributions, and Social Security timing, healthcare. I mean, even professionals can feel overwhelmed trying to put it all together. And that's exactly why I decided to create a free video walking you through my proven retirement planning process. The same process that's helped hundreds of successful professionals just like you turn their hard-earned savings into a confident retirement strategy. It breaks down exactly how to approach each piece of the retirement puzzle, showing you where to start and how to build your plan step by step. If you'd like to see how this process could work for you, just click the link below to watch the free video. You'll discover how to transform your retirement savings into a clear, actionable retirement plan, giving you confidence about your future. So now let's get back to the video. Now let's see if Paul and Lynn can reach their lifestyle goals of $10,000 per month indexed at 3% inflation to their age 80, where their expenses will reduce to $7,500 in today's dollars. And these expenses are, of course, inflating at 3% per year to their age 95. We also want to make sure that they can gift Paul's employer stock to his kids over the next 7 years. And to refresh, we're looking for a Monte Carlo score of 80%. You can see the percentage of success down here and the total portfolio assets left here. And now let's run some stress tests. First, we'll test for the bear market to occur in 2026, where they lose about 31% or $1 million of their portfolio. We can see that their Monte Carlo score is 100%. So this means that they can actually enhance their lifestyle. So let's see by how much. If we want an 80% chance of success, we can increase their spending from $10,000 a month to $14,830 per month to age 80, where they can then spend $11,125 per month, which is up from the $7,500 that we had planned. And this is really exciting for them because they did want to do some international travel while they're still young and healthy. Now let's see what happens if they both need long-term care between 85 and 88 before passing away. And we can see here that still they have a 100% chance of success. So if we want that 80% that we look for, they can still increase their spending, but just not as much as if they didn't need care. Their spending could increase from $10,000 a month to $13,830 per month, and their advanced age spending from $7,500 per month to $10,315 per month. And Paul and Lynn are super excited because they didn't want to purchase long-term care insurance or life insurance, and now they can rest knowing that they can easily self-insure and actually spend more than they believed they could. Now let's look at their income guardrails using a modern guardrail approach rather than a Monte Carlo approach. I do like to use both in our analysis because they're analyzing the exact same information in the two best ways to evaluate a financial plan. You'll notice that the amount they can spend per month here is higher than in the Monte Carlo we just went over at 80%, and that's because we're not testing for a bear market in 2026. However, this does provide us with guardrails so that we can adjust our spending based on portfolio performance. The amount that anyone can spend in retirement is ultimately dependent on the value of their portfolio. And because the stock market isn't linear, the spending is not linear either, right? So we all know that we need to adjust our spending based on our portfolio, but we don't know by how much. And this is where this software comes in. Here we can see that if we have a few really great years in the stock market and their portfolio grows to about 4.5 million, they can spend just over $20,000 per month. Now, on the flip side, if we endure a market crash, they will need to reduce their spending to about $14,000 per month, which is basically what the Monte Carlo test gave us from earlier. Okay, lastly, let's look at different distribution strategies to see how they should be withdrawing income from their portfolio to minimize their lifetime tax liability. So, first, let's look at all of the strategies one could take when distributing their portfolio for income. And I want to focus on the second one, as it's actually the most common among advisors and do it yourselfers. And this is called conventional wisdom or taxable, tax deferred, tax free. This is a widely held belief that upon retirement, you should pull your after-tax assets first, so your, savings and brokerage accounts, then your pre-tax accounts are your traditional IRAs or 401ks, and lastly, your tax-free accounts are your Roth IRAs. And while we normally agree that Roth accounts should be pulled after your brokerage account and probably after your pre-tax too, if you have a decent amount of Roth money, the strategy normally fails. Remember that the prices don't have any Roth money. So if they don't want to do any Roth conversions, we want to know if they should pull their income from their brokerage accounts first or their pre-tax IRAs first. We can see here that if they pull from their taxable accounts first or conventional wisdom, that their average lifetime tax rate is 16.51%. They'll pay total estimated lifetime taxes of 1.3 million and be able to spend 4.1 million over the course of their retirement, and their net legacy is almost 5 million. However, if they pull from tax deferred first or their pre-tax IRAs, their average lifetime tax rate is marginally higher at 17%, but they end up spending about $10,000 less in total lifetime taxes. They could spend about 15 to 20,000 more over their life and leave a higher net legacy by about almost a million, about 900,000. So let's take a closer look at the comparison and the future values. And I want to use future values because they're more accurate. Inflation is very real. And we can see here that by pulling their income from their IRAs first, they can save over $150,000 in lifetime taxes. And because of that, they can actually spend more and their net legacy increases substantially. But before we can decide that this is the best non-Roth strategy, we need to see when this decision starts to pay off from a tax perspective. So remember that when you're pulling from your pre-tax first, your tax liability will be higher upfront as well. So in this chart, we can see that the break-even age isn't until 92 under current tax law. This is just too old for them to consider this strategy. So if they don't do any Roth conversions, they will plan to use conventional wisdom. But now, what about Roth conversions? Should they or shouldn't they? If we scroll down here, we can see the different Roth conversion strategies labeled by tax bracket or by IRMA bracket. Now, IRMA is the Medicare income-related penalty that can significantly increase the cost of healthcare in retirement, so it's a very important threshold for Roth conversions. I'd like to see how filling up the 22% tax bracket would work for them over the next 5 years. Now, on the surface, we can see that it would save them an average lifetime tax rate of 3.2% per year, almost $900,000 in tax over their life, which, obviously increases how much they can spend, and their net legacy increases as well. Now, remember that they're already gifting their kids over the next 7 years. So they're not worried about leaving the largest legacy they can, and that's not really weighing in on their decision here. Their break-even age is 87. And in spite of this older break-even age, Paul and Lynn actually believe that future tax rates will increase, and they want to start a tax-free bucket of money in some capacity. So they choose to fill up the 22% bracket this year, and then we'll take it year by year after that, just depending on their tax situation and what the stock markets are doing. In our practice, we do our best to convert client money during market downturns, even if they're short-lived, as that's the best way to make the most out of a down market. Convert when it's low so that the monies can kind of grow tax-free and get to as high as possible. So in summary, Paul and Lynn can spend much more than they thought, have a tax-efficient gifting strategy, and can rest assured knowing that they can self-insure for long-term care. They're thrilled to start their retirement journey with a thoughtful and flexible financial plan. Now that you've seen the reality of managing a $3.5 million portfolio, the real insight is not about the size of the nest egg. It's about the unexpected challenges and opportunities that come with substantial wealth. My work with wealthy retirees has revealed something surprising. Many are unnecessarily restricting their retirement lifestyle despite having more than enough saved. It's not about complex investment strategies or sophisticated tax planning. The true difference maker is understanding how to confidently use your wealth to create the life you want while ensuring it lasts. Today's example showed how proper planning can transform retirement from a time of wealth preservation to wealth enjoyment. And that's exactly why I created a free video walking you through my proven retirement planning process that I use with all of our clients to help them plan for a successful retirement. Just click the link below to watch it, and I'll see you next time.